It's that time again. Hello. Welcome to another Sunday episode. 18 centigrade. Where are we? 7:15 in the morning. 18 centigrade, 64 Fahrenheit. That is quite warm, actually. It's warmed up a lot. On Friday, where are we? It's now Thursday. On Friday in London, it could reach 26, they reckon. So after all this chilly weather, we've had chilly mornings where I put the central heating on for a quarter of an hour or so. It's actually warmed up, which isn't bad at all. 94% humidity, 1019 millibars on the barometer. Some of you have asked why I do the barometer reading and the percentage, the humidity. It's because several people have contacted me. They're into barometers. Can you believe it? How nerdy is that? That's nearly as bad as me being a radio nerd. No, seriously, some people do like to follow the weather. And they like to know that on the south coast of the UK, for example, the pressure is 1019 millibars. Humidity is 94%. Anyway, there we are. Can't please all the people all the time, but you can please none of the people none of the time. Is that right? I haven't got a clue. There have been quite a few comments about Butlins, as I thought there would be. Some people love Butlins, some people hate it. But the general sort of consensus is it's a great weekend getaway, whether it be Butlins or anywhere, it doesn't matter. It's a good weekend getaway because people work all the week, don't they? Monday to Friday or whenever they work, 9 to 5, or they do shift work. It's just nice now and then at the end of the week to have something to look forward to, even though it might be Butlins. Some of you, which is rather nice, have said you would rather listen to my podcast episodes than go to Butlins. That's good. I would imagine, though, the majority of you would rather go to Butlins than listen to my podcast episodes. Happy days. Let's move on, shall we? What have I got? I've got notes here all over the place. Someone passes my house every day, sometimes several times a day. I won't say whether it's a he or a she, but who are they? What is their story? Where are they going? Where have they been? Do you like people watching? Do you know, I used to love that in the pub. In the old days, I'd sit down somewhere at a table just on my own and I'd watch people standing at the bar, people coming in and out of the pub, people at other tables. I used to love people watching. You get one chap at the bar who keeps fidgeting. His feet are wobbling around and it looks like he's trying to dance. His arms are waving around. Someone else is just totally relaxed, one elbow on the bar, leaning there, having a nice chat. All these different people, all the different characters. I used to love it, especially people coming into the pub. They'd look round to see if there's anyone they know. I don't know, I just like that. And I do like watching people pass the house. We have our regulars here. Obviously, people come this way to work or they go home from work, passing the house. But there's this one person in particular, every day, walking past the house, then coming back, then going again. No idea where they live. I don't know where they live. Or what they're doing, rain or shine, snow or wind or whatever. It's interesting. One of these days I'll have to go out there with my little recorder. Excuse me, do you want to have a little chat for my podcast episode? Who are you? What are you doing? Where are you going? I mean, what's the matter with you? Why do you keep walking past my house? You never know. They might say, oh, I'll tell you my story. Looking at the recorder, oh, I'm going to be on a podcast. You never know. Everyone has a story to tell, don't they? No matter who they are, where they work, what they do. They have a story to tell. They could go back a few years or decades. This happened, that happened, which moulded or shaped their lives. Anyway, enough of that. What do you think? Raise rants at protonmail.com. Have you got a story? Of course you've got a story. You can reflect, no doubt, on things good and things bad during the years you've been on this earth, on this planet, unless you've come from another planet. Is there life on other planets? I'm going to set North Carolina's sun off in a minute. I'll be getting a phone call. Now, life on other planets. I look forward to the phone call, honestly. I've had several emails about what car do you drive. Do you remember I met that chap from school? And the first thing he said was, what car do you drive? As if it's some kind of status symbol. If you've got an old banger, oh, you haven't done very well. If you've got a new Rolls Royce, oh, you have done well. I've never been into status symbols. Several of you have said you've experienced the same thing. Bump into someone. Oh, where do you live? Which road do you live in? So-and-so road. Oh, yes, I know that. Yeah, not very salubrious. I suppose it's home, though. Comments like that. Yeah, I just don't like all that. I can't be bothered. I recently met a chap that I hadn't seen for a while. And he said, "Oh, where are you living now?" And I told him. And he said, "Oh, I live in whatever road." And I said, "Oh, that's a nice area." And he said, I've just bought a house in Brighton as well." And I thought, why don't you just shut up? "Oh, I've just bought a house in Brighton as well." So I lied to him. I shouldn't do this really, but they ask for it. They leave themselves open, don't they? So I said, "Oh, I had a house in Brighton. I sold it. I sold it. It was too much hassle going over there. We had it rented out, going over there and sorting out problems. So I sold that." And his face, his jaw almost dropped. Well, it didn't. Jaws don't drop. Do they drop? I don't know what he did. He made some sort of facial expression that was, I don't know, depicting jealousy, annoyance that I'd also had a house in Brighton, but I'd sold it. I don't know. I'm not into all this stuff. Is it gamesmanship, they call it? It's a load of rubbish. Who cares what house you've got and where you live? Who cares what car you drive? I don't care what car you drive. If you've got a Rolls Royce, great, well done to you. You've done well. If you've got an old banger, nothing wrong with that. I like old cars. The question on the telly the other day was, do we need to reinforce dress codes? There was a mayor, was he a mayor of, I forget where he was, somewhere in the UK. He wore a Hawaiian shirt to some military do. He was the mayor of whichever town, and he wore a Hawaiian shirt. And people were saying, well, surely as mayor, you could put on a shirt, a jacket and a tie, just look the part, look a little bit like a mayor rather than you're on holiday somewhere. Some people say, oh, that's all right, he can wear what he likes. He's expressing himself. Others say, well, he might be expressing himself, but he is representing the town, whichever town it was, I forget. What do you think? I think that school uniforms are a good thing, because you'll have a child at school whose parents don't have any money, so they'll buy a second-hand school uniform. Another child, parents are loaded. He's got a new school uniform, but they're wearing the same uniform. If there was no uniform, the loaded parent's child would go to school in designer clothes. The parents of the child that didn't have a great deal of money, he would go to school in whatever he got. No designer clothes, and he would feel bad. He'd feel self-conscious. So I think uniforms are good. I used to, whenever we went out for a meal, whether it be a restaurant or a pub, I wore a shirt, tie, jacket. I just liked to look the part. Could be a birthday, it could be whatever celebration. I just liked to look the part. It ended up, I was the only one in the restaurant. I'd look round, I'm the only one with a tie. Everyone else is jeans, T-shirt and whatever they happen to have thrown on before they left the house, or even thrown on the night before by the look of some of them. I don't know, I just like to look smart if we go out. I don't so much now. I don't wear jeans and T-shirt. I will wear a proper shirt and a jacket. I just don't wear the tie. But I think that's a shame, just to go out to a restaurant looking rather scruffy. I think it's nice to dress up and, well, it's respectful, isn't it? I don't know. What do you think again? Raise rants at protonmail, what's my phone doing? .com. Raise rants at protonmail.com. I was saying what's my phone doing because I've got my notes on my phone now. The reason being I lose bits of paper, as you well know, and my phone is always with me. So if I'm out somewhere and I'll think, oh, I must mention that on Sunday's podcast, I can just add it to my notes here. It says here, a woman on a TV advert said, what would you do with £10,000 if you win? What would you do with £10,000? Well, I'd buy some more radio gear, wouldn't I, being a nerd? I think there are too many quizzes. Are they quizzes? And, you can win this, you can win that. Enter here, enter there. £5 to enter, £3. I don't know, it's just too much. And then there's all the charity adverts. If you donated to every charity on telly, it would cost you a few £100 a week. This lot want £3, that lot want £3, they want £20. It just goes on and on. Everyone wants money. It's all right donating to a charity that might be close to your heart. We donate to one or two charities, but you can't donate to them all. I'd love to save donkeys. I love donkeys. Elephants. I'd love to save water voles. I'd love to save moles. I'd love to save raccoons and wildebeests. And I just can't keep sending £3 to all these different places. There are too many charities. All with good causes, obviously, but people can't do it. Got a nice email here from Jed. He says, I've been listening to your podcast for many years. Initially, I couldn't understand, I'm just reading this, why you wanted to go back to the old days. You're always harping on about the old days and how good it was then. As the years have passed, I now understand fully, and I also want to go back to those days. It's saying things have changed too much too quickly. That's true, Jed. Everything is fast, isn't it? What's he put here? Change is inevitable, which is true. Back in the old days, we moved slowly away from steam engines to diesel and then to electric trains. It wasn't done overnight. And he says that's the trouble, what's he put here, with electric cars. They've been brought in too quickly. Yeah, I agree, Jed. We haven't got the infrastructure for the electric cars. In our road here, the mains, the power cable under the road, was put in the 1940s. Now, I'm surprised that it can cope with washing machines, with tumble dryers, all the electrical goods we've got, microwaves, dishwashers, everything. It wasn't designed for that. Back then, people had electric fires, of course. There's a few kilowatts each. But if everyone in our street bought an electric car and put in a charging point, well, the cable under the ground, it couldn't handle it. It would melt. So they'd have to recable a load, well, probably most streets, certainly streets of our age. I'm sure, yes, it was the 40s. It's old lead-covered cabling. You know, it's been there for decades, heading for 100 years. Well, not quite, but not far off. And you start drawing that amount of power, that amount of current through that cable, and it will melt. Well, it'll blow the fuses round the substation, because they do have fuses. It would just blow the fuses. I remember once in the village where we lived, they came to replace the meter and the box, their sort of company fuse box, as they call it. And I said to the chap, do you do it live? And he said, oh yeah, we do it live. We can't turn the power off to the whole street just to change your box. And I said, what's the fuse back at the substation? 400 amps. He said 400 amps. Now, I'm not going to work it out, but 230 volts at 400 amps, that's quite a few kilowatts. Now, if what do cars take to charge? Are they, 10 kilowatts, are they? I don't know. But you could work that out, and you don't need much in the way of Ohm's law to realise that the street cable couldn't handle it if every house had electric car on charge. So there we are. Yes, you're right, Jed. Everything is too fast. Oh, we'll have electric cars. Right, we'll ban petrol. We'll ban diesel by 2030. That's it. They're all banned. You've got to have electric. Well, we're not ready for it. Obviously, one day electric cars will be the norm. There won't be petrol or diesel cars. But as Jed says, it's too much too soon. The proof of the pudding will be in the eating, won't it, Jed? When we will go electric and all the cables up the street melt. I had to just check that out. 400 amps at 230 volts is 92 kilowatts. Now, that was the village where I lived, so we'll just base it on that. And there were a lot of houses in that road where I was. So 92 kilowatts, and then the 400 amp fuses will blow anything over that. If each car is 10 kilowatts to charge, well, you can't even charge 10 cars, can you? And there must have been 80 houses in that road, so you can't even charge 10 cars. The fuses round the substation would go pop. And if you increase the rating of the fuses at the substation, doubled it, for example, then the transformer would go pop. That couldn't handle it, could it? It's designed to take probably up to 10 kilowatts. That's what it can put out. Any more than that, the fuses blow. If you increase the fuse amperage, the transformer will blow up. So not only do you have to replace the cables in the street, but the substation transformer. Anyway, enough of that. Thanks, Jed. You set me off on one there. Set me off on one. Moan, moan, moan. I do wonder these days whether things are thought through properly. You know, the government will come up with this and that. Oh, we're going to do this. We're going to change this. We're going to do that. And then as the days go past, people are saying, well, hang on a minute. I don't think you thought this through. What about so-and-so? Oh, yeah, okay, minor problem. We'll get round that. Yes, and also, what about this? Ah, yes, we hadn't thought of that. And that seems to be the way of things these days. People rush. Right, we're going to bring in a new law, new legislation. We'll do this, we'll do that. It's all rushed. No one seems to think of any consequences. Oh, what about this? What about that? We don't want to talk about the government, do we? Stone the crows. Someone emailed me the other day, which I'm trying to find. I thought I wrote it on a bit of paper. It's not on my phone. Anyway, it was about, in the 50s and 60s, ladies wore skirts and dresses and whatever they had underneath the skirt or the dress. And now apparently they are wearing shorts under their dress instead of what they were before, kind of knickers. Oops. So is this the norm? I don't know. Whoever it was asked me. I can't remember who asked me now. I'm sure I had an email. Well, I did. I don't know. Is that the norm now? People wear shorts under their skirts or dresses? If that is the case, why? Let me know if you're a lady who wears shorts. Let me know. raiserants@protonmail.com. I don't know why I was asked about that, because how would I know? I don't wear skirts or dresses. What else have I got written here? Oh, change, yes. Things that have changed. Just going back to the steam engines, where they did away with steam, slowly doing away with steam, the drivers, the steam engine drivers, went on to diesel and electric trains. Trisha's dad did. He was a steam driver. He went on to diesel. He went on to electric. So that was fine. The firemen aboard the steam engine, that was hard work being a fireman. Most of them were redundant. Now, I saw a programme the other night about this, and this fireman said he went to work on a building site as a labourer. He was a skilled fireman, and you have to be skilled. You have to know what you're doing. You're firing the engine. You don't only shovel coal into it. It's quite a complex job. So he was a highly skilled chap on the railway, and he ended up redundant. So he went to work on a building site as a labourer. That is sad, isn't it? I don't like that at all. As he said, what else could he do? You don't need a fireman anywhere in a factory or anywhere in an office block. You don't need a fireman. So he just went to work on a building site, which was a great shame. And that who's heard of Dr. Beeching? You all know Dr. Beeching, don't you? A lot of controversy over him. He closed a lot of the branch lines, the small railway lines, to villages. And he said, during this programme I was watching, quite interesting, he said, you've got a village, a branch line out to this village. You're running a steam engine, putting a couple of carriages several times a day, back and forth, with no passengers. How is that profitable? It doesn't even break even. It just costs a lot of money, because it's not only the driver, the fireman, the conductor. You've got to have a conductor on the train, well, you did in those days. I think they do now. Then you've got to have the signalman. You've got to have staff on the station. Well, perhaps one chap on the village station. He's the station master. There's the maintenance of the track, and so it goes on and on. There's the coal, the maintenance of the steam engine. For what? For no passengers, or perhaps 2 passengers a day. You can't do it. So looking at it that way, he was right to close that line down. Of course, as soon as he closed the line down, then the villagers were up in arms. Oh, no, now we're cut off. Yeah, well, you didn't use the damn railway anyway, did you? You're complaining now it's gone. Why didn't you use it? So I can see the reasoning behind it. And apparently a lot of the freight that went by rail, I remember all this. I used to love train spotting. They were on about train spotting. Back in the 50s and 60s, it was a massive hobby. Teenage boys and some teenage girls, they're on the platform on the station. Every station has got kids on it, teenagers. And they're writing down the names of steam engines and the numbers of trains and things. It wasn't just a hobby, it was like a movement. You know, it was amazing. I remember doing it. And I was never alone on the platform. You'd buy a platform ticket, which I think was a penny, was it, or 2pence. That allowed you to go onto the platform. And it was a huge, as I say, like a movement, train spotting. It wasn't looked at as it is today, bunch of nerds, weirdos. It was a way of life. In fact, my sister-in-law loves steam engines. She really does. She loves trains. If we have a steam engine coming down here on our southern line, she's up on the bridge near her, the railway bridge, standing on a step that she's got because she can't see over the wall, stands on the step, taking photos and videos of the steam engine as it goes past. This is early in the morning. She's really keen, which is good. I mentioned freight. It all went by rail in the old days. Loads of freight. I remember when we had a house that backed onto the railway. A lot of diesel engines went past, pulling freight trains. Loads of Ford Transit vans. Loads of hundreds going past, one after another. Big tankers full of, petrol or whatever it was. I don't know what was in there. Petrol, I expect. Then there was the road, was it roadstone or rocks? loads of trucks full of rocks, big stones, probably for road building, coal trucks, of course, back in the old days. So much stuff went by rail, all this freight. Slowly, it all went by road. Hauliers came up on the roads with their lorries and they started taking over. I've often wondered why that should be, because surely if you want to get a load of, a load of freight from the south coast here to somewhere north of London, well, surely the railway is the way to go, isn't it? Not on the road. It's going to take you hours, days. I suppose with road, you can go from sort of a front door to a front door, can't you? Whereas with a train, you stop at the local goods yard. So it then has to be put onto lorries and then driven to wherever it's going. I don't know. But I'm sure that freight, a lot of freight, shouldn't be on the roads. It should be on the railways. But there we are. The people running the railway obviously know better than me. Do they? I don't know. What do you think? There was the milk train early in the morning taking milk all round to different towns. There was the newspaper train full of newspapers because they had to get from London or wherever they're printed. They had to be distributed throughout the country. I think that's all road now. I'm sure they don't come down here by train. I remember on our central railway station here, I remember the milk train turning up, 5 in the morning, was it 4:30 in the morning? I remember the newspapers, loads of them, hundreds, thousands of newspapers being chucked out on the platform. It was just all freight, it was really good. Presumably there aren't that many newspapers sold now because back then everyone had a newspaper, didn't they, every day? Whereas now, very, very few people have a newspaper. So perhaps it's easier just to send a few lorries down with newspapers rather than, I suppose they had to pay, yes, obviously had to pay the train, didn't they, the railway, rather than have to pay out money for I don't know. How things have changed. Change is inevitable, isn't it, as I've called this episode. Change is inevitable and it's fast sometimes, even too fast. There was always change, obviously things changed. Whether you liked it or not, things had to change, as with the steam engines, they faded out, so people are redundant. But I think back then, as I said before, the change from steam to electric was slow. It was over years. Other things changed back then. In the 40s, the 50s, there were other changes. In fact, they were talking on this programme about other countries around Europe. They did away with steam decades before we did. They moved on. They moved on to electric. Whereas we stuck with the trains. I think the last train ran in the UK, was it? The steam engine, I'm talking about. 67 or 68, 1968. Other countries had gone electric decades before. After the Second World War, they got rid of the steam and gone electric. We were always so slow. I think we still are. We were using, in factories, Victorian machinery. These big drive shafts that go along the ceiling with huge pulleys, canvas belts going down to machines, milling machines, lathes, whatever. Big canvas belts going down, all driven by probably a steam engine or even an electric motor after that. But other countries were moving on. They didn't have all this Victorian stuff. Well, they wouldn't. They didn't have Queen Victoria. No, you know what I mean. They didn't have all this old technology, this old engineering stuff from 1800 and something, whereas we did. We kept it going well into the 20th century. I think we've always been so behind with everything. I don't know why. I suppose it's investment or lack of. They were saying after the war, which basically exhausted the railway, nothing had been maintained properly because of the war effort. The railway was in a terrible state of disrepair and they didn't have the money. After the war, we were broke. Couldn't start spending money on the railway. So I don't know. It just seems a shame that we've never kept up with technology. I think even these days we are lagging behind some countries. They've got these robots everywhere and goodness knows what in factories in Japan and wherever. Quite incredible the way they're moving ahead. I think initially we were at the forefront of railways. We had the finest railway in the world. We sold steam engines to India and wherever? All over the place. We were selling steam engines to people. Then they all moved on ahead and left us in the dust. It's not funny. But it's true though, isn't it? I remember in the 50s and very early 60s we brought out a transistor radio. Fantastic transistor radio. Of course the Japanese, they copied, apparently, allegedly, they copied our transistor radios, made them 10 times smaller. Nice, neat little things you could put in your pocket. whereas our big old things had a handle and a big loudspeaker in there. And our motorbike manufacturing industry, that all went. Japanese bikes came over, didn't they? Yamaha, is it? And all that lot. Electronics. I mean, we were way ahead in electronics in the 40s, in the old days. And I remember in the 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s, if you had a camera, if it was made in Japan, it was a good one. Hi-fi equipment, amateur radio equipment. If it's Japanese, oh, that's good, it's Japanese. Nothing British. The trouble is these days, if you say anything, you're accused of talking Britain down. They do this in the Houses of Parliament. I'm not going into politics, but if anyone says anything, oh, all you do is talk the country down. Oh, you're no good. It's facts, isn't it? It's not talking the country down. It's coming out with facts. Anyway, let's move on from that. What have I written here? I've written shorts, oblique, knickers. I think we've done that, don't you? In fact, Tricia has come in here before now and read something on my notepad here. What does that mean? I might write something like blonde brunette, which is something I'm talking about, hair dye, hairstyles in the old days. I just write blonde or brunette to remind me. Oh yeah, she says, oh, what's this? What's all this about blondes and brunettes? Back in my teens, I knew this girl. She was Irish Republic. She was over here. I think she was on a working holiday or some exchange scheme, I don't know. And she was going back to Ireland. I got to know her. This is before I was married, I hasten to add. Got to know her quite well. We were only friends. And she gave me a photograph of herself, put her phone number on the back. She said, keep in touch. No doubt you've heard of the expression, digging a hole I won't be able to climb out of or something. Well, a friend of mine came up with something. He said, I'm always trying to climb out of holes that other people have dug. And I thought that quite interesting. So on the back of this photograph, I just wrote, a hole I never dug, to remind me what it was. I wrote it on the back of the photograph because that's the only bit of paper I had. I borrowed a pen and just wrote that on the back. This is where the fun starts. This girlfriend of mine saw this photograph. I think she must have gone through my jacket or something. Saw this photograph. Oh, what's this? A hole you never dug. Oh, what's this then? Who's she? And all this business. I tried to explain what had happened, but of course it was rather an incriminating thing to write on the back of a photograph of quite an attractive young teenage lady. So she didn't believe me. I wasn't too bothered. We'd only known each other a few weeks, so it didn't really matter. But it was quite funny. I've told several people that story over the years. Moving on, it's now Friday evening. Quite a wind still, but it's been a lovely day. We really have had some warmth today. We had the sun shining, and out of the breeze under the patio roof, it was really hot. Absolutely amazing. So pleased with that. Yes, it's Friday today. Saturday tomorrow, of course, we've got the family round for lunch. The Pink Floyd tribute band last night was absolutely phenomenal, fantastic. What an absolute evening that was. I just don't know, it was just wonderful. Obviously, if you don't like Pink Floyd, you wouldn't think it was wonderful, but it was amazing. We've seen them several times now. We've seen them, I think, twice here, 3 times here now. We went to Hastings, we went where else? We've been all over the place to see them. It's so worth it. Anyway, enough of that. You don't want to know about Pink Floyd. A friend of mine, years ago, had a garage, his own little garage set up. He was a mechanic. He was doing very well. He employed a mechanic, a little backstreet type garage, and he got so busy that he had to keep stopping and answering the phone. Customers would come into reception. Could you have a look at my car? Can I book my car in? He thought, I've got to get a receptionist, someone on the front desk, to answer the phone and see people as they came in and deal with queries. His wife worked full time. She had a very well-paid job, so she was unable to help. She couldn't leave her job. Maybe in the future they thought that perhaps she could work in the business as well, but not at the moment. He wasn't taking enough money. So this, it's quite funny. So this girl that we knew, we were chatting in the pub one evening, and he was saying, I'm going to have to employ a receptionist. She said, oh, what's that? What's that? I'm looking for a job. Anyway, he employed her. She was a very good-looking young lady, and he employed her. His wife found out. Well, when I say she found out, he said, look, I've employed someone there starting on Monday. Initially, she was quite pleased. She went into the garage on Monday in her lunch break from the office to say hello to this girl, to meet her. And she wasn't at all happy. This girl was extremely attractive, stunning even. And his wife wasn't at all happy. It was quite, well, I suppose it wasn't funny really. What was that noise? Phone's making a noise. I suppose it wasn't funny really because his wife started making things difficult. She'd turn up at all times of the day. She'd leave her office. She'd pop out and turn up. And if he had to work late, which he sometimes did, it was his own business, don't forget, he sometimes had to work into the evening, and his wife was continually phoning or going round there. What are you doing? Where's that girl? Is she gone? Where is she? And he'd say, look, I'm working on this car. She went home at 5 or 6, whenever they closed. In the end, it didn't work. She was so suspicious all the time. It just didn't work. So he said to the girl, sorry, I can't employ you anymore. That evening, he told his wife that he'd sacked the girl. Well, not sacked her, explained that she was redundant, I suppose. And his wife was a bit funny. She still didn't trust him if ever he worked late. Anyway, in the end, he got back onto this girl. He said, look, have you found another job yet? And she said, no. He said, right, well, come back. He said, I'm not having this. This is my business. Come back. Anyway, his wife left him. They didn't have children or anything, and it was only a rented flat they had, so no problem there. But she left him. She was just riddled with jealousy. As she put it herself to me once, she said, I'm just insanely jealous. And that's awful, isn't it? Insanely jealous. Anyway, he went on to build up his business, and he got several mechanics working for him in the end. And he did very well. But what a shame. All because she was, suspicious of him. And there was nothing going on. This girl had her boyfriend. In fact, she got married. She still worked at the garage. Anyway, I don't know why I mentioned that. It just came to me the other day. When was it? In the night. I was just thinking about it, thinking about podcast episodes. I make notes. I wake up in the night and make notes on my phone. I've got a note thing and I can just talk to it. I expect Tricia sometimes wakes up and thinks, who's he talking to? What's he on about now? Talking about some girl at the garage. Happy days. I've got an email here from a young couple. I say young, a couple. I don't know how old you are. Laura and Jamie, husband and wife team. They've got a farm. They run a farm. They're enjoying it. They've been there for many years. And there's a problem that's arisen. There's a house down the lane and some people have moved into the house. They came to say hello to Laura and Jamie. Hello, we've just moved in down there. Oh, yeah, welcome, blah, blah, blah. After about a week, the couple came back to the farm to see Laura and Jamie with a complaint. Is there anything you can do about the smell? They said. Oh, this is real. You might think I'm making this up. This is real. Is there anything you can do about the smell? I've heard of this sort of thing before. So Laura and Jamie are sort of saying, well, what do you mean? What smell? Well, it stinks. We have to close all the windows in the house. We can't open the windows. It's summertime. It stinks. Laura and Jamie said, well, it's a farm. We've got cows. We've got pigs. Cows poop and pigs make a mess. And it smells. It's a farm. Didn't you realise this was a farm when you moved into the house, when you bought the house? Yes, we did realise it was a farm, but we didn't think it would smell so much. Is there anything you can do about it? And of course they said, well, no. What can we do? What do we do about the cows, the pigs and everything? We can't do anything about it. And they got quite funny, this couple. They said, well, if you don't, we'll have to go to our solicitor. So Laura and Jamie just said, OK, off you go. Go to your solicitor. They rang their solicitor and said, look, the couple down the road, they're going to a solicitor. He said, don't worry, you won't hear from their solicitor, whoever he is. And they said, why not? And he said, because it's a farm. No solicitor would take this on. The farm, you move in next to a farm and you complain about the smell. No solicitor is going to take that on. Anyway, they never did hear from a solicitor. And this couple, they moved, they sold the house. They'd only been there a few weeks, so they put it up for sale, moved out eventually. But what a daft thing to do, isn't it? That reminds me, thanks for that, Laura and Jamie. Thanks for that. I mean, it's not uncommon. It's typical of idiots, isn't it? That reminds me of something that happened locally years ago. Got a bit of a rough throat at the moment. What time is it? Oh, it's 7:30 in the evening. Do you know it's dark? It's dark already. Stone the crows, winter's on the way. This couple, this is true. This couple moved into a flat right next to a school, a primary school where the kids are kind of, I don't know, what are they, 5 to 11 years old or something. At playtime, you have a playtime in the morning, say 10 o'clock, lunchtime at 12 or 1 or whatever it is, afternoon playtime, say 3 o'clock, then they go home. And they complained to the school about the noise. And the school said, well, it's a playground. It's a school. The kids go out there, they run around, they shout, they scream. This is what children do. And it was in the local paper. This is quite a few years ago now. And this couple weren't happy. Why can't you keep the kids quiet? They moved into this flat, which was right next to the school. It was next to it, not a few doors away or anything like that. It was literally next to the school. And they moaned and complained. In the end, they moved out. They sold the flat and moved out. But you'd think, wouldn't you, that if you're buying a flat or a house in the country, you would think, right, well, there's a school there. There are children there. Playtime is going to be noisy. In fact, from here, where we are, we can hear the kids at playtime in a school, which is a good, what must be quarter of a mile away, must be at least. In the summer, you can hear them shouting and screaming. I love it. It's great. We love hearing the kids playing, We really like that. It's nice. And you'd think, wouldn't you, if you're going to buy a house just down the road, down the lane from a farm, there's cows all in the fields, there's pigs snorting about, chickens doing whatever chickens do. You'd think, well, it's going to be a bit smelly here and noisy with the cows mooing, but there we are. That's people for you. Anyway, thanks for emails and everything. That's brilliant. Just now, did I say arised? Did I? It's not arised. You can't. Is it arose or risen? I don't know, do I? Something I've always got mixed up with since I was at school, and I'm still mixed up. Lay and lie. I'm going for a lay down. I'm going for a lie down. I don't know which. I don't know which it is. I went for a lie down. I'm going to lay down. I'm going to lay the table. I know that. You don't lie the table, do you? Unless you're lying to it. Anyway, not to worry about that. Just going back to tribute bands for a minute. That reminded me, sitting there watching the Pink Floyd tribute band, it reminded me of the clubs in the old days at the weekends. They'd often have a live band and they were fantastic. Really good. They'd just have a drummer, bass guitar, lead guitar, and someone would sing. And it was really good. I remember seeing the Bonzo Dog Doodah band. They were brilliant. And who else? Oh, the Barron Knights. I actually saw the Barron Knights at a club. Now, they were good. Do you remember the Barron Knights? They used to do songs, they do a Rolling Stones song. And they took them off really well. It was fantastic. And funnily enough, I was reminded of this last night because I was thinking the Pink Floyd tribute band, if they had done this before Pink Floyd, genuine Pink Floyd existed, they would have made themselves millions. They would have been Pink Floyd. But of course, it's not just copying someone else, is it? It's writing the music, writing the lyrics, playing, it's everything. Pink Floyd did it first. And I remember thinking about Barron Knights in the old days. Some of the people they took off were brilliant. You'd think it was them. They did the Stones really well, if I remember correctly. And I used to think then, if they had done this, if they had said we are the Rolling Stones before the Stones existed, you know what I'm saying, don't you? I'm not going to waffle on about that. Anyway, there we are. Do you like tribute bands? Raise rants at protonmail.com. A lot of tribute bands I've seen, I won't mention the B word, but it's a place in Bognor, along the coast from me. I've been there many times. A lot of the tribute bands are just rubbish. They're no good at all. Some of them are very good. I saw a Rolling Stones, I forget what they were called. Is it Strolling Bones? I forget what they called themselves. But the singer, overdid it. He was taking off Mick Jagger very well, but he overdid it. And it was just silly. In the end, it just sounded absolutely silly. I used to love the live bands at the clubs in the old days. We now have live bands in local pubs, of course, but I don't know, that's nothing like... I just don't like it. Okay, so that's lay and lie and arised, arose, arisen. I don't know what I'm talking about. Do you like Marmite? Someone the other day said, what's this thing about Marmite? You love it or hate it? Because someone on the telly said, oh, it's Marmite, isn't it? And people are thinking, well, what's he mean? It's Marmite. They're talking about something or other. Why has he mentioned Marmite? Is he making a sandwich? I explained. So if you don't know, I just tell you, because you might be in America, you might think, what's he on about? Marmite? You love it or hate it. So let's say the Pink Floyd tribute band, you either love it or hate it, so you call it Marmite. Do you see what I mean? I'll shut up about that, shall I? What else have I got written here on my phone? I've got arised, arose and risen and lay and lie. I've got my list here, my list of jobs to do, and I've just ticked one off. It's now Saturday morning. I've been out there very early and I've sealed the shed roof with tar or bitumen, whatever you want to call it. So I've ticked something off my list. Things to do 2025. I've still got several. I haven't done the shower, the bedroom ceiling. There's some flashing to be done. Moss on the utility room roof, kitchen cupboard doors. The list goes on, but you'll be proud of me. I've actually ticked one off so I can put the list away. In fact, Tricia hasn't added anything for a while. Let's hide the list over there where she can't see it. If she sees it and there's a pen here, I'll just write this, I'll just write that.
And now for a change of subject.
When I was over at the farm, I was about 14, I suppose, over at the local farm. I was just wandering around aimlessly. It was summertime. As you know, I used to love going over the woods, the farm, the fields. I heard a rustling in some bushes. I stopped, I froze, because I thought it might be a fox, a rabbit. I just wanted to see what it was. So I kept perfectly still and waited. Nothing happened. I got a little bit closer, rustling in the bushes again. I was trying to look, straining my eyes, craning my neck, as they say. What does that mean, craning your neck? I'm just looking in the bushes. How can I crane anything anyway? And there was someone in there. They weren't brambles or anything like that, stinging nettles and stuff, just undergrowth type bushes. And I got a bit closer. There's a girl in there, about my age, about 14. And I said, "Are you all right?" And she looked at me and she said, "Are you a ghost?" What? This is perfectly true. I said, "Well, of course I'm not a ghost." What do you mean? She said, "There's a ghost in the woods back there." I said, "No, there's not. There's no ghost in the woods, and I'm certainly not a ghost." Anyway, she came out of the bushes eventually. She was wearing jeans and a T-shirt. As I say, about my age, about 14, maybe a bit older. And I said, "Show me this ghost." So we walked back up the track to the woods, went in there. And she was saying, "You sure you're not a ghost?" I said, "I'm pretty certain I'm not a ghost." And I said, "Where's the ghost? What was it? A man? A woman? What was it?" "It was a lad," she said, "a teenage lad." I said, "Well, it was probably just someone messing about, like we are, just someone in the woods." No, she said, "He walked through a tree." That's how I know he was a ghost. Walked through a tree, okay. I thought at this stage, is she okay? Does she need help? Because she was serious. I could tell by her expression and the way she spoke. She was seriously concerned. Anyway, we saw a lad, about our age, and I just said hello to him. He looked over to where we were and he came to join us. And she was saying to me, that's him. He's a ghost." So we started chatting to him. He wasn't a ghost at all. He looked perfectly right to me. And then she said to him, "Are you a ghost?" So he didn't just say no and laugh like I did. He said, "Are you?" And she said, "Well, I'm not." And I said, "Well, I'm not either." So that's cleared that up. None of us are ghosts. I was trying to make light of it all the time to bring her out of her, whatever it was, anxiety. And she said, "Well, I saw you walk through a tree." He looked at me and frowned. He looked back to her and said, I don't walk through trees." Anyway, then she said something to me, looked at me. I looked at her. I forget what it was she said, something about ghosts. When we both looked back round, he'd gone. He wasn't there. She said, "There, I disappeared into thin air." I said, "Well, he's probably walked off." There's more to that story, quite a lot more to that story, which I'll probably save for one of my ghostly tales. Do you listen to my ghost stories on YouTube? I know some of you do. Anyway, enough about ghosts. But that was quite interesting, and the outcome was quite interesting. So I might put that together as a ghost story on YouTube at some stage. I meant to ask you, did you like the lady with the change of subject?
And now for a change of subject.
I thought I'd throw that in so that you know I'm talking about something different than I was talking about just now. I've known one or two people over the years who will change subject almost mid-sentence. Tricia's dad was good at that. We're talking about a car, for example, and he will say, "He was a lovely chap." "What? Who's a lovely chap?" "We're talking about a car. Who's a lovely chap?" "Up at Horsham." "Horsham?" This is true story, this. I said, "Horsham? Who's at Horsham?" "The chap in the signal box at Horsham," because, her dad was a train driver. "Oh, right, signal box at Horsham. Oh, he was a lovely chap." We were talking about a car, and suddenly he's gone off on this thing about What's that news flash now? This thing about a chap at Horsham in the signal box. Now there's a change of subject. There's me going on about a news flash. Heathrow Airport warns of delays as cyber attack disrupts or European airports. Now I should have had my change of subject lady in there, shouldn't I? But no, I only threw that in for fun. Some of you have said that you get a bit lost when there's a change of subject, as I used to with Trisha's dad. He quite often did that, change the subject. I don't know what we're talking about. There's me still talking about a car and he's talking about a signal box on the railway at Horsham. Happy days. Another quick change of subject. I won't put the lady in again. When I met that girl over at the woods, that often happened, you know. Often meet people over there, about my age, a bit younger, a bit older. A lot of people liked the farm. In fact, there was more than one farm over there. People liked to wander over to see the farm. I remember seeing the pigs and the cows, that sort of thing. You go and have a look. It was interesting. Even for teenagers, you know, it was interesting. Go over to the farm on a summer's day, have a look over there, see what's going on. And as I've said in the past, both farmers were normally pretty friendly and helpful. They'd show us around the farm if they weren't too busy. But I did meet people over there. I won't say I made friends over there because I didn't really make friends. People were acquaintances. Hello, Mac. Nice to hear from you. And thanks for your email about friends and things. In fact, I've had several more emails about friends. There's one here from Frank. Frank, nice to hear from you, Frank. Thank you for your email. The general consensus with the emails seems to be that most people are acquaintances and not friends. A true friend, a real friend, is someone who will stop what they're doing, day or night, doesn't matter what time it is. They'll rush round to help you with whatever it is you need. So I think most people are acquaintances, aren't they? Meeting people and making new acquaintances, as I did, over the woods, over the farm, they're like-minded people. I like that sort of thing. I like the countryside, the trees, the woods, the farm. Well, they like the same thing. They weren't town people. They didn't want to be in the town all the time on a Saturday, go and hang around the shops in the town. They wanted to be in the countryside. Like I did, they didn't want to be down the beach. I never got on with the beach. We only lived, at one stage I lived, 300-400 yards from the beach. Hardly ever went down there. I just didn't like the beach. So yes, meeting like-minded people. And I did make some good acquaintances in the woods. I like that girl, for example. I knew her for probably a year or two, on and off. You know, we went out and stuff. I mean, we were only 14, so we didn't go to pubs for drinks and stuff like that, and nightclubs. They wouldn't have let us in. But I sort of went out with her, I suppose, if that's the way to put it. I don't know. We normally met over the woods. Having an interest in radio, amateur radio, ham radio, I did join the local radio club when I was 16. But I didn't get on there at all. I just didn't fit in. They were nerds. I was a nerd, if that's a word to use. I still am. Anyone with a hobby as amateur radioers or collecting military vehicles or whatever it is, you're a nerd, aren't you? N-E-R-D, look that up. Is it such a word? I suppose it's a word. But the nerds at the radio club weren't my type of nerds. I just didn't fit in. I don't know what it was. I think they were too serious. A lot of people on the radio, amateur radio, they're too serious. I like it as a hobby. It's supposed to be a bit of fun. Have a bit of a laugh, chat to someone and have a bit of fun. Not all this deadly serious business like some of them. I don't know, I just can't get on with that. A hobby to me is meant to be a bit of fun. Also, you find with groups, societies, affiliations, there's always one that wants to take charge. A bit like Captain Mannering on Dad's Army. Do you watch that? Have you ever seen that? I was in a radio group once. We went to do some radio. I think that was on the beach. Set up a station for some events weekend. And there was this one chap. He said, right, Ray, you can be the safety officer. What? What's a safety officer? What are you talking about? And he explained that we need a safety officer. Someone to check that the radio mast isn't going to fall down and do damage, hurt someone. Check that cables aren't just strewn across the ground. They're done properly so people can't trip over them. I went there to chat on the radio, see how many contacts we could make. I didn't go there to worry about cables across the ground. What was he talking about? Anyway, I left. I grabbed my radio and left. There was another group I was in. I just remembered. What was it? It was about stocks and shares. One of the chaps in the group was a financier or whatever he was. I don't know what he was. He worked in the city, as he was always telling us. And he named various people. I think there are only 3 or 4 of us in the group. He was director of this and someone was director of that. What was I? I was director of something. It was hopeless. And we had to meet once a week in this bar. I didn't mind meeting in the bar. I could have a beer. But they're going on about the meeting, and someone took the minutes of the meeting. What do you want about? I just hated the whole thing. I invested a £5 initially. The chap that was sort of in charge wanted us all to invest £50 each. And I'm going back quite a few decades. I put a £5 in. And after a few weeks, I said, look, I'm not doing this. I want my £5 back. He said, well, we've actually lost money. I think I got £3 back because the investment had gone wrong. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. It certainly wasn't my sort of thing. I was what was I director? Director of the Word, I think, because I wrote the blurb about our whatever it was we were doing. I just can't remember what it was about. I'll tell you why I can't remember. Because I took no interest in the thing whatsoever. Absolute waste of time. When I lived in the village, a chap I knew, he was a Freemason, and he wanted me to become a Freemason, and he was telling me a little bit about it. I didn't want to. I thought about it, but I didn't want to do it. From what he was saying, it was all right if you've got money. I don't know. Any Freemasons listening, raise rants at protonmail.com. I nearly went for it, but I decided against it. There were 1 or 2 things he told me that I wasn't too sure about. I didn't like the idea. Anyway, I didn't do it. He was the one that got me onto the parish council in the village. I didn't really like that either. Sitting up on the stage in the village hall with the other parish councillors, the audience, those sort of people from the village, put their hand up. I got a pothole outside my house, and Ray's in charge of potholes. I was in charge of potholes. Seriously, I had to go around the roads making sure there's no potholes because they were unadopted roads in the village, so there were no street lights, anything like that. And people would come and knock on my door or phone me, and they'd say, I'm so-and-so from so-and-so address. There's a pothole outside my house. There's a crack in the road. And I don't know. I didn't want to be in charge of roads. Anyway, I left that. I wasn't on the parish council for too long. It just wasn't me again. I could never be an MP. Could you be a member of parliament? All the stick you get, the abuse. Stone the crows. I couldn't do that. I'd hate it. The problem is with anything like the parish council, you get these officious little, I mustn't say that, officious little people. You know, they're in charge. They like being, I don't know, they love it. It's their life. It's all they do. Parish council work is all they do. They're always making notes, taking minutes of meetings, coming up with ideas, wandering around the village. I think I told you years ago the one about the bench seat. There was grass in front of the bench seat, so when it's wet, people sitting on the seat have got their feet on the wet grass. They were talking about moving the seat forward so their feet would be on the pavement. And then some other parish chap said, well, then people walking past are going to trip over their feet. So I said, well, why don't we just put a couple of paving slabs on the grass where the bench is? I'm not sure that they ever did that, actually. That's all it wanted, just cut out a strip of turf, sink a couple of paving slabs there, job done. But there were discussions about it and notes taken about it, and just goodness me, it just went on and on. Do you know, I have a feeling next time I pass that bench, it's still there. I'll have a look. I have a feeling that nothing was ever done. It's still grass in front of it. One thing I didn't do on the parish council, they had their Christmas dinner. Booked at a hotel place. There's a little hotel in the village. They arranged their Christmas dinner there and they all met there. They took their wives or husbands. I just couldn't go there. I mean, it's just, I can't go to a Christmas. I hated it. Hate the whole thing. Of course, they weren't happy. I left before the Christmas anyway, so it didn't apply. But the comments I had, you've got to come to the Christmas dinner. It's an annual thing, Christmas. Every year we have Christmas dinner at the so-and-so hotel. I didn't want to do that. You know me well enough by now. Those of you that have been listening to me for well over 6 years now, you know very well I would not go to a Christmas dinner with the parish councillors at some horrible little local hotel. I'm sure it was a lovely hotel. I did upset my fellow parish councillors at one meeting. They were talking about this chap's shop, a little row of shops in the village, and he put is it an A board outside his shop a sort of double-sided blackboard thing that stands up with special offers written on it. And one or two people, as they do, they complain, moan, oh, you can't put that there, it blocks the pavement. It didn't matter. It was a wide pavement, it wasn't in the way, but they wanted something to moan about, so they complained to us, the parish council. At the next parish council meeting, I think I annoyed people because I said, just in the meeting, it wasn't the public there, just us lot in the village hall, we had to sit there and have these meetings and take minutes. I said about this person that had complained, I said, well, they can always cross the road if they don't like it, or they can move out of the village, get rid of them. We don't want people like that here. That didn't go down too well. Happy days, unhappy days. I just wasn't made for that sort of thing. Anyway, enough is enough. I'm going to love you and leave you. It started to rain. I've got a few things to do in the garden. I want to check that the shed roof doesn't leak anymore. I know it will, because where the water's coming in, inside the shed, that's not where it's coming in outside, is it? It goes under the roof felt, like a capillary action. It creeps along and it tricks you, doesn't it? You think that's where it's coming in. It's not at all. It's coming in about 5 yards away. Bit like cars in the old days. I remember having the old cars, they leak. You get water dripping onto the carpet by your feet when you're driving along. And you think, oh, that's the windscreen. No, it's not. You see it, all that, Where is it coming in? Very often it's a long way away from where you think it's actually coming in, creeping along somewhere, running down a cable and then dripping. Oh, old cars always did that, didn't they? Right, mother-in-law has just turned up. It's Saturday, so we're going to have a few people round for lunch. She's the first one here. I can hear them rabbiting downstairs. I better go and show my face. Lovely chatting to you as always. Look after yourselves. Be good, be bad. If you're bad, I must stop saying that. Don't get caught. Thanks for listening as always. I will see you on Wednesday with a midweek message. Bye-bye for now.